Welcome back. Today's story isn't about jealousy, awkward family dinners, or another tense on-camera argument. This is something far bigger, far darker, and far more dangerous for the Brown family than anything we've seen before. What's unfolding right now isn't a family disagreement. It's a full-scale legal war that threatens to wipe out everything Kody Brown built over decades. This isn't gossip. This isn't speculation. This is about court filings, financial records, and a lawsuit so explosive it could permanently dismantle the Brown family's financial foundation. For years, viewers watched the family slowly unravel, confused by land that never got built on, homes that were paid off but never explained, and businesses that swallowed money without producing results. The question was always the same. Where did all the money go? Now, that question is finally being answered, and the answers are devastating. At the center of it all is Janelle Brown, the wife no one expected to go nuclear. The practical one. The numbers person. The woman who worked steady jobs, pinched pennies, and even lived in an RV to save for a future that never came. And now, she's done waiting. Janelle has filed a lawsuit seeking to dissolve the family's LLC, accusing Kody of absolute financial control, reckless spending, and treating shared assets like his personal kingdom. The company was supposed to be a symbol of unity, a legal structure created to protect the family's wealth and secure futures for all of their children. Equal ownership, equal voice, equal benefit. That was the promise. But according to the lawsuit, that promise was broken almost immediately. What began as a partnership quietly transformed into something else entirely. One man holding power, making decisions alone, and expecting unquestioned loyalty. And the breaking point didn't come from resentment. It came from money. Specifically, an inheritance. After Janelle's mother passed away, she left her a modest inheritance. Not a fortune, but enough to finally offer security after years of sacrifice. According to insiders, after Christine left the family and while Janelle was living simply, Kody and Robin approached her with a demand disguised as responsibility. They needed money again. Taxes. A house. Another attempt to revive a failing business. But this time, they didn't ask for help. They told her the money belonged to the family. That as a shareholder, it was her obligation to hand it over. All assets are family assets. That sentence changed everything. After years of watching shared money flow into Robin's projects, after being denied support for her own modest home, Janelle was being asked to give up the final gift from her mother. And this time, she said no. Days later, she hired an attorney. And the war began. What followed wasn't a divorce filing. It wasn't emotional retaliation. It was something far more calculated. Janelle's legal team filed a shareholder lawsuit, one of the most aggressive tools in corporate law. Instead of suing for personal gain, she sued on behalf of the company itself, accusing Kody of destroying its value through mismanagement, abuse of power, and blatant self-interest. The goal wasn't compromise. The goal was dissolution. According to forensic financial analysis included in the case, millions in shareholder value vanished through disastrous land deals, abandoned building projects, and endless cash poured into a business that never turned a profit. There were no repayment agreements, no documented loans, no protections, just money transferred again and again, authorized by Kody, benefiting Robin, and leaving everyone else exposed. The audit trail reportedly revealed something even more disturbing. Inventory purchased with company funds didn't remain company property. When products failed to sell, they didn't return to storage or liquidation channels. Instead, they quietly disappeared, reappearing as gifts, personal items, and household goods. The business, on paper, existed. In reality, it functioned like a private spending account. The financial damage outlined in the report is staggering. Lost land value. Wasteful architectural fantasies. Hundreds of thousands poured into ventures that never paid back a dollar. The final estimate placed the destruction of shareholder value well into 7 figures. That money wasn't abstract. It represented homes never built, futures never secured, and decades of labor erased. But the most damaging evidence didn't come from spending, it came from governance. The company's own bylaws required oversight. Large expenses were supposed to be voted on. Meetings were supposed to be recorded. decisions documented. So Janelle's lawyers demanded the records, the votes, the minutes. The response was chilling in its simplicity. They didn't exist. No formal meetings. No votes. No documentation. Years of massive financial decisions made without following even the most basic corporate rules. Kody's defense was that they were a family, that decisions happened informally, but the law doesn't recognize kitchen table agreements. It recognizes responsibility, and that's when the narrative collapsed. In court, the contrast was impossible to miss. Janelle sat composed and focused, calm in a way only someone armed with facts can be. Kody, by contrast, appeared defensive, frustrated, and unprepared for the scrutiny. When expert witnesses laid out the numbers, the explanations didn't hold. When asked to justify decisions, he leaned on emotion and authority instead of legality. Then Janelle took the stand. She was asked if she had ever been invited to vote on major expenses. She hadn't. Asked if she approved massive cash infusions. She didn't. Asked if she was given real choices. She wasn't. Everything was framed as already decided, already spent. When the defense tried to turn it personal, she didn't flinch. She didn't raise her voice. She redirected everything back to the facts. This wasn't about relationships. It was about duty, about trust, about money that didn't belong to one man. And when Kody testified, the damage became irreversible. Under oath, he admitted to ignoring the board. He described himself as the leader who couldn't be slowed down by shared decision-making. He defended unilateral control as necessary. And in doing so, he confirmed everything the lawsuit alleged. The final blow came from an unexpected witness, Christine. With no financial incentive left, she confirmed what many had suspected for years. Decisions were made privately. Conversations happened behind closed doors. Authority flowed in one direction. When the judge delivered his ruling, it was swift and brutal. The company was declared irreparably broken. Kody was stripped of control. Assets were ordered seized and liquidated. The empire was over. There was anger. There were tears. But Janelle didn't celebrate. She didn't gloat. She simply sat there, finally validated. This wasn't revenge. It was accountability. So now the question isn't what happened. The question is what comes next. Was this justice? Or was it inevitable? And what happens when a kingdom built on control finally collapses? Tell me what you think. This isn't just another episode recap or a messy family argument. What's happening right now is far more serious, far more dangerous, and far more explosive than anything the Brown family has ever faced before. This is the beginning of a legal nightmare that threatens to erase decades of wealth, power, and control in one devastating move. For years, fans watched the cracks form slowly. Confusing land purchases, homes that never made sense financially, businesses that swallowed money without ever producing real returns. Every season raised the same uncomfortable question: where did all the money go? Now, for the first time, that question is being answered in court. At the center of this storm is Janelle Brown, the wife no one expected to strike first. The calm one, the logical one, the woman who believed in teamwork, sacrifice, and long-term planning. She worked steady jobs, lived below her means, and even moved into an RV to save money for a future that was always promised but never delivered. And now, she's had enough. Janelle has taken the most extreme step possible. She's suing to dissolve the family's shared business entity, accusing Kody Brown of running it like a personal dictatorship instead of a partnership. What was supposed to be a company built on equality and shared responsibility has now been exposed as something very different. The LLC was created to protect the family's assets and provide stability for all of their children. Equal ownership, equal voice. That was the agreement. But according to the lawsuit, that agreement collapsed almost immediately. Decisions were made behind closed doors. Money flowed in one direction. And accountability disappeared. But the moment that changed everything didn't come from years of frustration. It came from a single demand that crossed a line. After Janelle's mother passed away, she left her an inheritance. Not a massive fortune, but enough to finally offer security after decades of sacrifice. According to insiders, After Christine left the family and while Janelle was living simply, Kody and Robin approached her with yet another financial request. They needed money, for taxes, for a large home, for a failing business that had already consumed hundreds of thousands of dollars. This time, they didn't frame it as help. They framed it as obligation. She was told that as a shareholder, her inheritance belonged to the family, that all assets were shared, that it was her duty to reinvest the money. After years of watching family funds poured into Robin's projects, after being denied support to build even a modest home of her own, Janelle was being asked to surrender the final gift her mother ever gave her. And this time, she didn't hesitate. She said no. Days later, she hired a lawyer. And that single decision ignited a legal war that would shake the entire Brown family to its core. Because what Janelle filed next wasn't emotional. It wasn't personal. It was strategic. Instead of going after Kody as a spouse, she went after him as a corporate leader. She filed a shareholder lawsuit, one of the most aggressive weapons in business law, accusing him of reckless leadership, financial abuse, and destroying the company from the inside. This wasn't about walking away. This was about tearing the entire structure down. And that's where things get truly terrifying for Kody Brown, because the financial evidence hadn't even been revealed yet. What Janelle set in motion wasn't just a lawsuit. It was a forensic autopsy of the Brown family's finances. Once the legal process began, the numbers started talking, and what they revealed was far worse than anyone expected. For years, money had been disappearing into projects that never produced results. Land that was supposed to become a family legacy sat untouched. Grand building plans were drawn, funded, and then abandoned. A business was repeatedly revived despite never making a profit. On paper, everything looked active. In reality, value was being drained year after year. The forensic review uncovered a stunning pattern. Massive sums were transferred without loan agreements, without repayment schedules, and without any documented approval from the other owners. This wasn't structured investing. It wasn't risk-managed growth. It was money moving freely, controlled by one person, benefiting one household. And the deeper the accountants dug, the uglier it became. Company funds were used to purchase large amounts of inventory for a failing business. When that merchandise didn't sell, it didn't return to company storage or get liquidated. Instead, it quietly vanished. The paper trail suggested those items ended up as personal property, gifts, household items, and private use. What was supposed to be a business was functioning like a personal shopping account. The financial damage was no longer speculation. It was measurable. Hundreds of thousands lost in land deals. Massive waste on projects that never broke ground. Enormous sums poured into a business that never paid back a dollar. The final estimate showed over $1 million in destroyed value. Money that could have built homes, secured futures, and protected the children. But the numbers alone weren't enough to end everything. The real death blow came from something far simpler. The rules. Every corporation has them. Bylaws. Safeguards designed to prevent exactly this kind of abuse. In this case, any major expense required a formal meeting, a vote, and written records. So Janelle's legal team demanded the documentation. They asked for meeting minutes. They asked for votes. They asked for approvals. The response was devastating. There were none. No recorded meetings. No formal votes. No written approvals. Years of major financial decisions had been made without following even the most basic corporate governance rules. The excuse was that they were a family, not a boardroom. But legally, that excuse meant nothing. What the records showed was absolute control. Decisions made privately. Money spent first, explanations offered later, if at all. The other owners didn't participate. They were informed after the fact, once the damage was already done. By the time the case reached court, the narrative had completely shifted. This was no longer about emotional grievances. It was about power, control, and the systematic exclusion of shareholders. In the courtroom, the contrast was striking. Janelle appeared calm and prepared, grounded in facts and documentation. Kody, on the other hand, looked increasingly cornered. Every attempt to justify the spending led back to the same problem. There was no authorization, no oversight, and no accountability. When expert witnesses laid out the financial trail, the defense struggled. Arguments about family unity collapsed under the weight of legal responsibility. The company existed on paper, and with that came obligations that had been ignored for years. And then came the testimony that changed everything. Under oath, Kody admitted that he didn't believe he needed approval to make major decisions. He described himself as the leader who couldn't be slowed down by shared governance. In trying to assert authority, he confirmed the very misconduct the lawsuit alleged. At that moment, the case stopped being complicated. Because when a corporate leader openly admits to ignoring the rules designed to protect shareholders, there is no defense left. And that's when Janelle's legal team prepared to deliver the final blow, bringing witnesses who would expose how decisions were really made behind closed doors.